Welcome to the Master the NEC podcast, the ultimate destination for anyone passionate about the electrical trade. Whether you're a seasoned electrician, an eager apprentice, or just someone who wants to dive deep into the world of electrical work, you've come to the right place. Join your host, Paul Abernathy, a true authority in the industry with over 38 years of trade experience, as he electrifies your mind with in-depth discussions, expert tips, and valuable insights that will keep you ahead of the curve. Each episode, Paul will illuminate the complexities of the trade, decode the National Electrical Code, and share the latest industry trends, all while empowering you to take your electrical career to the next level. So, gear up, plug in, and get ready to supercharge your knowledge, because with the Master the NEC podcast, the power is in your hands. Now get ready. Here is your host, Paul Abernathy.
Hey, what up, everybody? Welcome to another episode here of Master the NEC podcast. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host as always, and thanks for joining me on this podcast as we talk about all things electrical. You never know where the topic's going to go. And remember, we have over 1,000 episodes that you can listen to on any social media platform that plays podcasts. You can go on Google or Bing or any of those search engines and type in Master the NEC podcast. We're on Spotify, Spreaker, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean. Again, any of the platforms that are out there, you can actually listen to our podcasts and kind of go through them. Go back. This goes back many years. I've been doing this quite a long time. I venture to say there's a lot of people that do things fly by night, but one thing you can say about me is I am consistent. I have been doing podcasts now for well over a decade plus. Actually, I've been doing this all the way back since the early 90s. And so prior to as easy as it is now to upload and do podcasts, it wasn't as easy way back then, right? With AOL and all this kind of other stuff. So times have changed, but we're still doing the podcasts. So go check them out. They're not labeled really well. So I encourage you, just when you're chilling, just pop a podcast in there and listen. I'm still a big, huge podcast guy. Everything seems to be going to video, but I'm a big into podcasts. I still listen to them. I have one of those Bluetooth devices that's in my shower, and I stream from my phone through Spotify over to the Bluetooth device that's in the shower. It's waterproof. It sits in there. It's got nifty little lights on it, but I stream them in there. And so I listen to all kinds of podcasts when I'm taking a shower, believe it or not. Wait a minute. It's TMI, too much information. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. So, but thanks for joining me. Hopefully you get something out of the podcasts. Okay, so let's talk a little bit today about topics. So most people know that I'm going to be starting an article series for ECNM magazine coming out in July of 2026. It's going to be every other month, and at some point, because we have so much to say, I think the first article that I wrote for it, it was supposed to be 1,200 words, and I pumped out about 2,500. And the editor was like, whoa, Paul, let's dial this back a little bit. So basically, the one article I wrote is going to be broken into two, a part one and a part two. But then that leaves me 4 articles to get out what I have to get out in this series. And there's so much to unpack when it comes to the inspector and the electrician relationship. And I think that is something that was missing from ECNM magazine. I think that even Electrical Contractor magazine does not have that interaction. And when you look at something like an IAEI publication, which is very much specific to the members of that association, not everybody is, the problem is that everything is always one-sided, right? And so this will be the first time that you'll see something that's coming from all sides. Now, people say, where do I get the position? And it's funny because me and Mike Holt were talking the other day, and I'm name dropping. Me and Mike were talking the other day, and he's He's written for EC&M magazine for damn near 40 years. And we're kind of taking over this part and kind of carving out a niche in there for inspectors and electricians. The can't we all get along type of concept. And of course, I'm doing some videos for him and podcasts, but the real focus here was to try to bridge that gap. And I think there was something that's lacking in the industry. So hopefully it'll be good. It'll be something that's great for the individuals who are electricians to read it, but inspectors to read it and engineers to read it, and everybody come together to understand that there's always additional something else that can be added to this triangular relationship between all of these people with some level of authority, right? So that's important that I wanted to establish in this article. And it's quite interesting because one of the topics that I'm going to be talking about is, the first couple articles, the first two articles at least, are going to be talking about the relationship. And it's going to heavily weigh towards the inspector's expectation for the electrician. And at the end of the day, one of the big key topics that I'll keep harping on in the article, and of course it'll come up in the podcast with EC&M magazine, and also we'll link them here later when they come out, but they'll also be on EC&M's magazine, in their online version, so you can listen to them, and I'm sure they'll promote them. But one of the big things is understanding the expectation of the electrical inspector and the electrician. And when the electrician calls in for an inspection, one of the things that we'll talk about in there is making sure that the first quality check or the first run is not something that you're expecting the electrical inspector to do. That sets the tone for a bad relationship. If your skills as an electrician are so low that you're relying on the electrical inspector to educate you on what you may have missed, what you need to add, then that's a problem. Because at the end of the day, the knowledge spectrum should be the electrician is the expert and the inspector's the validator, right? So the inspector's just going out there to make sure you hit all these high points. But you know what? They can't see what they can't see, okay? They can't see into walls. They can't look at the cables and assume that you ran the minimum of 2 small appliance branch circuits, and that they can't see all that. So it's kind of an honor system. And so one of the things is building that trust relationship. And that relationship starts with making sure that when you call for an inspection as an electrician, that you have already done your pre-check. You come up with some type of checklist. And again, if you're a small company, just you and a helper, or just you maybe, been there, been on both sides of that you're going over everything before you make that call, that you're not rushed into it by a builder, a developer, that, like, I need this inspection by Friday, I need this inspection by, and you call it prematurely. What you're doing is you're not sure that you've got everything, but you're trying to make the builder happy. And again, some of you out there are going to say, well, you got to do what you got to do. No, you don't. You don't. You don't. You're the electrical contractor. You're the electrician. It's ready when it's ready. If you're slow or you're behind or you're not meeting expectation, that's on you. It is not the responsibility of the authority having jurisdiction to be your quality control, your first level of review. Okay? And I don't care who you are listening to this out there. You know who you are. You don't get it to it's good enough and then call for your inspection only to have to add or fix a bunch of things. That pisses an inspector off. Not all of them. There's a lot of them out there that are very helpful, that want to help you, and those type of things. But at the end of the day, they also have a specific number. Their job is different than your job. They have a specific number of inspections they have to do. So there's an element of trust that they have placed in you. Now, one of the things that I used to say all the time is, and I'd say this to my inspectors when I worked for the city of Richmond or worked for the city of Alexandria, and I do my training sessions with the inspectors. I would always say, and I also used to do this back with my helpers and electricians that work for us at the Electrical Service Specialists, ANAA. I used to say, you have 100% of my trust. It's up to you to maintain it, because the moment that you erode that trust, it is extremely hard for you to earn it back. So I'm going to start out with a full tank of trust. And it's up to you to maintain that level, because over time, if you erode it away and you erode that trust away to the point where I don't trust you anymore, I mean, everybody makes mistakes. It's part of life. It's part of learning. But you get to the point where you erode away my trust, it is very, very hard for you to earn it back. So, and it's not that you can't, but it is, and it's not about respect. For me, it's about trust. My trust in you doing what I expect you to do, even when I'm not looking. That's a trust. Okay. So one of the things we'll talk about in this article, which I will get in exhaustive detail, is that relationship, because it's an extremely important relationship for the success of a inspection, an authority having jurisdiction type process or program, right? And so many electrical people want to blame the inspector or have the argument or say that inspector doesn't know what they're talking about. And you know what? They may not. They may have never been an electrician before, but they do go to training and code, and they're looking for the obvious code things. Okay. They may have no idea the way you have to route something, or how you have to do something, or this, that. They may have no clue because they've never put their hands on it. That doesn't lessen their authority at all, right? They're still the AHJ. They're being charged by the municipality to do this inspection. What you do not want is to start a relationship off by letting them be your first level of quality control. And I see it all the time. Inspectors don't want to fail. They don't want to fail you. They want to pass you so they can go on to the next thing. Now, we're not talking about a dubious inspector who just doing drive-bys, okay? We're not talking about we're not talking about that dude or gal. We're talking about the inspector who gets there, wants to look at it, give it look at the things, look for supporting, securing, the neatness, and that's one other thing that goes a long way. The neater you are, the less scrutiny you get. I'm just saying. And so that relationship with the inspector is critically important, because you never know when you're going to need to be able to have a conversation over a topic, maybe a discussion. It's never an argument. A discussion could turn into an argument, but the discussion is never going to go your way if the relationship with the inspection authority has gone to crap and it continues to go to crap. Now, I'm not saying this as in every jurisdiction's the same, because it's not. You have a lot of jurisdictions that are more than willing to work with you and help you and give you insight, and they may have inspectors who have 30, 40 years of experience. That could be the case, and they're more than willing to give you some thoughts and insight and correct something for you. But then again, you may get the inspector who is never put a set of clines in their hand in their life. They've never pulled any cable, right? So at the end of the day, they're telling you to change things or to do this or do that. It's purely from a code perspective. They don't care whether something makes sense or not, because that's not what they're there to enforce. Now, if there's something that can be debated, if there's something that is not black and white in the code, but it is ambiguous, then you can have that discussion. And you know what? That is where you want to make sure that you have a solid relationship with the authority having jurisdiction, so that they will actually listen to what you have to say. But if you call in inspections early, you get a bad reputation for that municipality, then they're going to be less likely to be very receptive to your point of view. And if you don't believe me, you can, because I get these posts and these comments on social media. Well, not much. Look, first thing you got to remember is it's not about you. Okay. My posts are not about you. They're about the National Electrical Code in general. They're about municipalities all over the country, and everybody looks at things differently. So when I teach something or I explain something, I'm talking about it holistically across the board, right? I'm not talking about you, that one listener whose experience is different, okay? It may be, but I'm talking generally. These are the things that I've seen, and I've worked with multiple jurisdictions. I've taught electricians and inspectors for nearly 40 years now. So I'm not making these things up. They are real arguments, disagreements that they have, right? So, I mean, you can poo-poo it all you want, but at the end of the day, it's legit. And so, you make the choice to listen and understand or not, or receive whatever message you receive or ignore it. I don't really care. I'm just giving you, I'm just the messenger, right? So at the end of the day, that is critically important discussion, and making sure that your inspections are not your first level of scrutiny or quality control, and you're asking the AHJ to do that. Also in the article, one of the things that we're going to touch on pretty early, probably in the third article, is discussions about things like physical damage and severe physical damage, and why that rests in the camp of the AHJ to make this decision, and why we cannot put that in the National Electrical Code. Now, it's not for the lack of trying, okay? They have tried cycle after cycle after cycle to submit something that defines physical damage and severe physical damage. Why? Because the code makes reference to that a lot. Now, this is an example and it'll probably be mirrored in the article. This is an example where this must always be in the hands of the AHJ, the local inspector, always. In my opinion, it should never be defined other than to make reference that physical damage is something that is based on the AHJ. And the reason for this is what may be subject to physical damage to you may not be to somebody else. So that is a judgment call that has to be done at a local level. Every installation the same. Let me give you an example. So let's say that I'm in a dwelling and I have a water heater, and it's obviously it's within sight of the panel. It's a utility room, let's say. Keep it simple. And I want to run non-metallic sheath cable over to it. So I'm going to run a 10-2 over to this water heater. And I run over and down the wall, okay, and over to the water heater. Now, they're going to come in and say, well, that non-metallic sheath cable running down the wall is subject to physical damage. So I want you to sleeve it in something that's going to protect it from physical damage. The other person would argue that, well, if I route it down the wall behind the water heater and then come horizontally over to the water heater, so every bit of that cable assembly is behind a water heater, behind the plumbing, over against the wall, is it really subject to physical damage? I mean, yeah, if you're Jack Nicholson in The Shining and you're swinging an axe, then probably so. But this is a common sense call where if I'm an inspector and I look at it and go, well, the code says that it can't be where it's subject to physical damage, and I'm looking at the way you've routed this. It's not really subject to. Now, in bizarro world, it could be. And that's the problem sometimes, is some people will say, well, what if they took the water heater out and then it's just there, and then in the future, if they change that water heater and then it's subject, now it's okay, well, then that may change in subsequent installations where maybe they get a permit to pull out the water heater. Maybe now they call for that cable to be protected if there is an inspection. I mean, we can't protect everybody from everything. We try, but we can't, okay? So it's a call that has to be made by the only one that can make this call is the AHJ. Now, you as the electrician can make the call to say, well, I don't think that's going to, the way I'm routing it, you'd have to destroy the water heater. You'd have to destroy everything to get to it. It's not really subject to physical damage. It's that's your call. Now, the question is whether or not the AHJ is going to agree with that or not. And I'm a big proponent for AHJs using some common sense. Even though the code says what it says, yes, where it is subject to physical damage, it has to be protected. That's where we agree. It's the judgment call that the AHJ has to make when he looks at that installation and goes, yeah, but where you ran it makes it unlikely to be subject to physical damage. So I'm okay with it. All right. And there's people out there, and I can guarantee I can hear them now, rustling around. Guys that serve on code panels forever, the purists, I like to call them, will say, nope. It's always subject to physical damage. So nope, they could remove that water heater for servicing. And now I'm like, okay, do you really think they're going to remove the water heater and all of a sudden get the hair up their butt to destroy the non-metallic sheath cable? I mean, they're just creating more work for themselves. Why would they do that? So I think it's one of the big things to realize, that we have to have the inspectors have to have a little bit of common sense. And it's not just trained to just read the book and try to apply it totally to every installation. That's why at the end of the day, the AHJ is the one with the authority, 90.4. They're the ones that make the decision, okay? And so I think it's critically important for us to understand that relationship, okay? I'll give you another example. So in a crawl space that's properly vented, which usually to building codes and standards, things like that, construction, it'll be vented properly. The question is it a damp location? Is it a wet location? Or is it a dry location? Again, that depends on the jurisdictional call. If I'm looking at a crawl space, whether it's dirt or it's enveloped, meaning it has some kind of vapor barrier down around it, there's real nice looking crawl spaces that we never get as a contractor. We're always this dirty ass crawl spaces. But anyway, let's just say we're in that crawl space. If you look up and you see open insulation, bad insulation between the floor joists of the above space, and you see that it's standard wood framing members, it's not treated wood, it's not anything special, then that is not a wet or a damp location. It's a dry location. Well, somebody says, well, it's got vents on it, so you could have humidity in it. Stop. You're bringing in the Willy Wonka what ifs. It is what it is, but that's the reason why the AHJ has to make the call. Now, if the AHJ says, I have historical understanding of this environment, where we're at, it's in Louisiana, it's high humidity, a lot of moisture in the air, they see evidence of pooling under the crawl, they see other signs of mold, then they can make that call. That's their authority. That's what 90.4 gives them. But typically there's bigger issues if that's the case. You look up and you see that if they're going to justify that that's the location, well, then there's going to have to do something with the wood that's in that area. They're going to have to do something about the open bat insulation that may be in the bottom of the floor joists that are exposed in the crawl space. There's other decisions that have to be made, but that's the AHJ that has to make that call, not you. So these are going to be the type of things that I'm going to target in that article. Is that there has to be a relationship between the inspector and the electrician. We're going to talk about different codes and how they may be applied. I'm looked at, differently based on different perspectives. And that was a funny thing. And I was talking to Mike and he brought up, he says, this kind of article is not really his writing style. And he has an amazing writing style. This isn't his type of writing style. He says it's perfect for me because I have served as a manufacturer's rep. I have served as an AHJ. I have served an engineering role. I've been a master electrician in multiple states for decades. And so it's kind of, serving on code panels and giving it another different type of perspective look of the impact, the way people may interpret things. So I'm kind of broadly well qualified. And then, of course, serving as expert witness and doing all that, court work or working with lawyers and things like that. And again, owning many patents on products gives me a unique perspective in how everybody may look at something. So I'm probably one of the few, if in the country, if you were to look at it, that has the broader knowledge of every facet, whether it's inspections, installation, manufacturer's perspective, NEMA, which is an overarching, kind of a manufacturer guidance thing, from an engineering design perspective, from an educator's point of view, as a teacher, from a code panel member. So I've done a little bit of all of it. And so I'm going to try my damnedest to bring it together and make it an amazing series, because I want to see EC&M shine. I think they're missing a certain market of people. And I think that, that EC&M needs to broaden themselves to the everyday electrician more, rather than gearing towards manufacturers, designers, and maintenance. I think that we can broaden that focus to the electrical contractor and electrician community, as well as branching in the inspection community, and bring it together. And I think it's going to make for an amazing article and series. So I'm looking forward to it. But those are examples of some of the things that we'll tackle in that. One of the things I might also tackle is the understanding of corrosive environments and how Code Panel 17 really struggle with defining that in the wiring methods that can be used in those locations when, they may restrict certain things, but at the end of the day, you've got panels that can be in there with plastic breakers. Most of the plumbing components are plastic. So most of the chemicals are stored in plastic containers. But yet there's just so many things that could be discussed that I think that would make for a great debate, or at least not so much a debate, but a conversation on how the AHJ may look at something differently than the electrician looks at it. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to try to tackle in this series. So I encourage you folks, if you haven't done it yet, go on and get subscribed to EC&M Magazine. I believe you can sign up and do their online one for free. I don't remember how the book works, whether they send you one in the mail or whether you sign up for it. I don't know if I don't think it's a paid subscription. I can't be honest with you. I can't remember. I don't think I've ever paid anything for it when I received it. So anyway, check it out. It's going to come in July, and the podcast and some of the videos I do for them are going to be on their website, I think, coming up in July. So I'm excited about it. All right, folks, that's about all I got to say on this episode. But again, that's just kind of give you some insight on where the articles are going and things that we're going to talk about. Now, of course, the videos and podcasts are going to be more code specific to the 2026 edition of the NEC. I struggle with that because they want more code stuff too when it comes to 2026. But from an inspection versus electrician perspective, there's really no jurisdictions that are enforcing the 2026 NEC yet. It hasn't been adopted anywhere that I'm aware of, maybe Massachusetts, but who knows? So it's kind of hard to bring up any disagreements or perspectives from an electrician to an inspector purely based on the 2026 code because they're not enforcing it. So none have really arisen due to this conflict or disagreement. But some of the concepts in there are still the same, whether it was 2020, 2023, or 2026. And I'm sure they'll be there for the 2029. So some of the stuff we'll touch on, emergency disconnects and for 1 and 2 family dwellings and all this stuff and the different perspectives, and why, maybe why the AHJ may see something different than the electrician sees and vice versa. Or maybe there's some kind of rationale that came from a code making panel that drove the decision. And so maybe the problem is the electricians don't fully understand what drove something to get to where it is. And so we're going to try to clarify that so that the electrician comes away going, oh, well, I get it. Now I see now. I never thought about it, but now I see, right? So, all those type of things. We may even bring up the controversial topic of the running all of the non-metallic sheath cables through one TA fitting and why the code says what it says. Maybe the folks out in Arizona will realize that and say, oh, crap. Okay, they're right after all. Probably not. But there's always that hope, right? All right, folks. That's it. That's all I got for this episode of Master the NEC podcast. Remember to subscribe. And again, you can request episodes. You can ask questions. All you got to do is go over to our website, fasttracksystem.com, and you will see in the navigation, there is a Let's Ask Paul feature. You click on that and you can fill in the information and send me a question. And I am more than happy to answer any questions on any topic electrically related that you have. All right. Until next time, folks, stay safe. God bless.
Thanks for tuning into another electrifying episode of the Master the NEC podcast. We hope you're feeling more powered up and ready to tackle the electrical world with the knowledge and confidence you need to succeed. Remember, in the electrical trade, knowledge is power, and we're here to make sure you stay plugged into the latest insights, tips, and code updates. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share the podcast with your fellow electricians and industry pros. Until next time, keep your tools sharp, your circuits clear, and your mind focused, because here at the Master the NEC podcast, we're all about sparking your success. Stay safe, stay smart, and keep mastering the trade. From all of us here at Electrical Code Academy, thank you for all your support, and we will see you on the next amazing Master the NEC podcast episode.